Commander Vexistar walked slowly through the control room of Nexus Prime. His green scales caught the blue light from dozens of screens that covered the walls. The space station was huge, bigger than most cities, and it watched over the edge of the Zalaxian Empire's territory. Nothing could get past without them knowing about it. At least that's what everyone believed. The commander stopped at Lieutenant Krisanova's station. She was young for her rank, with bright yellow eyes that never missed anything on her screens. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as she checked the sensor readings for the third time that hour. "Anything unusual today?" Vextar asked, his voice making a low rumble in his throat. "No, sir. Everything looks normal," Krisnova replied. But something in her voice made the commander look closer at her screen. The space around them looked empty. Stars dotted the darkness like tiny diamonds, and the familiar shapes of planets and moons showed up as small dots on the display. Trade ships moved along their regular routes, sending out the proper signals to identify themselves. Everything seemed peaceful, but Krisnova couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. 3 hours later, she saw it. A tiny blip on her screen that shouldn't be there. It appeared for just a second, then vanished. She blinked and looked again, but the screen showed nothing unusual. "Sensor glitch," she whispered to herself. These things happen sometimes. The equipment was old and space had strange effects on electronics. She made a note in her report and continued watching. The blip appeared again 20 minutes later. This time it lasted longer, maybe 3 seconds. Krisnova felt her heart beat faster. She ran a quick diagnostic on her equipment. Everything checked out perfectly. Far away, in the darkness of space, something moved. The USS Defiance cut through the void like a knife through black silk. The ship was enormous, stretching nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern. Its hull was dark gray, almost black, covered with armor plating that could stop anything the galaxy could throw at it. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge watching the stars through the main view screen. He was a tall man with short brown hair and serious blue eyes. His uniform was clean and pressed, but his face showed the tiredness of someone who had been awake for too many hours. "How are we doing, Lisa?" he asked without turning around. "Chief." Engineer Lisa Brooks looked up from her console. She was a small woman with red hair tied back in a ponytail. Her hands never stopped moving over the controls, adjusting settings and monitoring the ship's systems. "The quantum displacement drive is working perfectly, Captain," she said. "We're phasing in and out of normal space every few seconds. Their sensors might catch a glimpse of us, but they won't be able to get a solid lock." Morrison nodded. The technology was new, so new that Earth had only finished testing it 6 months ago. It let the ship slip between dimensions, becoming almost invisible to normal sensors. The Defiance could appear on an enemy's screen for a moment, then vanish before they could figure out what they were seeing. "How much longer until we reach their detection grid?" Morrison asked. Navigator Ben Taylor checked his instruments. He was young, maybe 25, with black hair and quick hands. 15 minutes, sir. Once we cross that line, we'll be in their territory. No turning back after that." Morrison felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Earth had been watching the Zalaxian Empire for years. They had seen world after world fall to the Empire's armies. Millions of people had been enslaved or killed. The Empire thought it ruled the galaxy, and no one had ever challenged them. Until now. "Remember, people," Morrison said to his crew, "we're not here to start a war. We're here to show them that humanity exists and that we won't be pushed around. But if they force our hand," he didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone on the bridge knew what the Defiance could do. The ship carried weapons that could crack planets and shields that could stop anything the Empire had. But Morrison hoped they wouldn't need to use them. Back on Nexus Prime, Krisnova was getting worried. The mysterious blip was appearing more often now, and it was getting stronger. She had run every test she could think of, but her equipment kept telling her the same thing. Something big was out there, something that shouldn't exist. She called over sensor technician Mordak, an older soldier with scars on his face from the war against the Kelvin rebels. He looked at her screen and frowned. "What am I looking at?" he asked. "I don't know," Krisnova admitted. "It shows up for a few seconds, then disappears. But look at the size readings. Mordak's eyes went wide. According to the sensors, whatever was out there was huge, not just big for a ship, but bigger than anything in the Imperial fleet, bigger than their largest battleships. This has to be a mistake, Mordak said. Nothing that size could get this close without us seeing it. But even as he spoke, the blip appeared again. This time it stayed on the screen for almost 10 seconds, long enough for the computers to get a partial reading. Long enough to see that it was artificial, made by someone, not a natural object. Get Commander Vextar, Krisnova said, her voice shaking. Get him now. The USS Defiance continued its silent approach. In the ship's war room, intelligence analyst Tom Walker studied maps of the Zalaxian Empire. He was a quiet man who saw patterns, where others saw chaos. His job was to understand their enemy, to know how they would react when humanity finally revealed itself. They've never faced a real challenge, Tom said to Captain Morrison. For 1,000 years, they've conquered everyone they've met. They think they're invincible. Good, Morrison replied. That means they won't be ready for us. Security Chief Nick Rodriguez checked his weapons one more time. He was a big man with steady hands and eyes that missed nothing. His job was to keep the crew safe no matter what happened next. Captain, Lisa Brooks called out. We're approaching the outer detection grid. Do you want me to increase our phase variance? Morrison thought for a moment. They could make themselves even harder to detect, but that would also make it harder to send their message when the time came. And they would need to send that message soon. Maintain current settings, he ordered. Let them see us. It's time. They knew we were here. The Defiance crossed into Zalaxian space like a ghost ship entering a harbor. Behind them lay Earth and everything they were fighting to protect. Ahead lay the unknown, and the most powerful empire the galaxy had ever seen. But Jake Morrison and his crew were ready. Humanity was about to announce itself to the galaxy, and nothing would ever be the same again. Commander Vexitar rushed to Lieutenant Krisnova's station. His boots made heavy sounds on the metal floor as other officers turned to watch. The control room had gone quiet except for the soft hum of computers and the beeping of warning signals. Show me, Vextar said, his voice tight with worry. Krisnova pointed at her screen. The mysterious object appeared again, this time staying visible for almost 15 seconds. The computer worked hard to analyze what it was seeing, and the results made no sense. Sir, the readings show something 2 kilometers long, she said. The computer says it's made of metal and other materials we don't recognize. But that's impossible. Nothing that big could get this close without triggering every alarm we have. Vexitar stared at the numbers. In his 20 years of military service, he had never seen anything like this. The largest ships in the Imperial fleet were only half that size, and those ships took months to build with the work of thousands of people. Run a full diagnostic on all sensor equipment, he ordered. This has to be a malfunction. But sensor technician Mordak shook his head. Sir, I already checked everything twice. The equipment is working perfectly. Whatever is out there, it's real. The object vanished from the screen again, leaving only empty space. But now they knew where to look. Mordak adjusted the sensors, trying to pierce through whatever was hiding the massive ship. There, Krisnova said suddenly. I'm getting energy readings. Power sources, unlike anything in our database. Sir, the amount of energy that thing is putting out, it's like a small star. Vextar felt cold fear creep up his spine. He had fought in 3 wars and seen the Empire's enemies try every trick they could think of. But this was different. This was beyond anything he had ever imagined. On the USS Defiance, Captain Morrison watched the tactical display. Red dots showed the location of Zalaxian sensors, and he could see them starting to focus on his ship's position. They're getting better at tracking us, Navigator Ben Taylor reported. The phase variance is still working, but they're learning to compensate. Morrison nodded. They had expected this. The stealth technology was good, but it wasn't perfect. And the Zalaxians weren't stupid. Given enough time, they would figure out how to see through the camouflage. How long until we reach their capital system? Morrison asked. 18 hours at current speed, Taylor replied. Chief Engineer Lisa Brooks looked up from her console. Captain, I'm reading increased scanning activity from their border stations. They know something is wrong even if they can't see us clearly. Morrison walked to the communication station where Lieutenant Amy Chen was monitoring Zalaxian radio traffic. She was young but smart, with a gift for languages that made her perfect for this mission. What are they saying? Morrison asked. They're confused and scared, Amy replied. The border station is reporting to higher command, but their officers don't believe what they're hearing. Some of them think it's enemy action, others think their equipment is broken. Morrison smiled grimly. Good. Confusion would work in their favor. Back on Nexus Prime, Commander Vextar was facing the hardest decision of his career. The readings were getting stronger and clearer. Whatever was out there was definitely artificial, definitely huge, and definitely heading toward the heart of the Empire. He opened a communication channel to Admiral Zethran, the station commander. The Admiral was an old soldier with gray scales and eyes that had seen too many battles. What's your status, Commander? The Admiral asked. Sir, we have detected an unknown vessel of unprecedented size, Vextar reported. It appears to be using some kind of stealth technology, but we're getting partial readings. Admiral Zethran's image flickered on the screen. How big? 2 kilometers long, sir. Possibly larger. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. That's impossible. No one has the technology to build something that large. And certainly no one has stealth systems advanced enough to penetrate our defenses. Sir, I know how it sounds, but the readings are consistent. We have multiple sensors confirming the data. Send me everything you have, the Admiral ordered. I need to see this for myself. The data transfer took only minutes, but those minutes felt like hours to Vextar. He watched the Admiral's face change as he studied the readings. Confusion turned to disbelief, then to something that looked like fear. This can't be right, Admiral Zethran said. Run the scans again, check everything. Sir, we've already run the scans 5 times. The results are always the same. The Admiral was quiet again. Then he spoke in a voice that seemed smaller than before. I'm sending this up the chain of command. Keep tracking that thing, and prepare for the worst. On the bridge of the Defiance, Morrison was reading reports from his officers. Every system was working perfectly. The crew was ready for whatever came next, but he knew the next few hours would be the most dangerous of their mission. Tom, he called to intelligence analyst Tom Walker. What do we know about their response protocols? Tom looked up from his data pad. According to our intelligence, they've never faced a threat like this. Their procedures are designed for dealing with rebellions and small raids, not unknown vessels, with superior technology. So they'll panic, Morrison said. Yes, sir. And panicked people make mistakes. Morrison hoped those mistakes wouldn't include starting a shooting war, but if they did, the Defiance was ready. Lieutenant Krisanova watched her screen as the mysterious object appeared and disappeared. Each time it showed up, the readings were a little clearer. She could see weapon ports along its hull, armor plating that looked incredibly thick, and energy shields that made their best defensive systems look like toys. Mordak, she called quietly. Look at these weapon signatures. The older soldier studied her screen and went pale. Those aren't in any of our databases. The power levels are off the charts. What kind of people could build something like this? Krisanova whispered. Before Mordak could answer, every alarm on the station began to sound. Red lights flashed, and a voice echoed through the corridors. All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill. Commander Vextar received the order from Admiral Zethran. Mobilize every ship in the sector. Whatever was coming toward them, they would meet it with everything they had. But as he watched the readings from the unknown vessel, Vextar wondered if everything they had would be enough. On the Defiance, Morrison felt the moment when stealth became pointless. His ship was deep in enemy territory now, and there was no turning back. It was time to announce humanity's presence to the galaxy. Open a channel on all frequencies, he ordered. Communication Officer Kate Sullivan nodded. Channel open, sir. Morrison took a deep breath. The next words he spoke would change the course of galactic history. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel USS Defiance. We come seeking dialogue with your Empire's leadership. We are not here as conquerors, but as equals who refuse to be ignored. The message went out across space, reaching every Zalaxian station and ship in the system. For the first time in over 1,000 years, someone was talking to the Empire as an equal. The silence that followed seemed to last forever. Then, chaos erupted across every communication channel as the Zalaxian Empire tried to understand what they were hearing. Humanity had just announced itself to the galaxy, and nothing would ever be the same. Emperor Zarthul sat on his golden throne in the heart of the Imperial Palace. His red scales gleamed under the bright lights, and his yellow eyes burned with anger. Around him, his advisors whispered nervously as they tried to make sense of the impossible message they had received. "Humans," the Emperor said, his voice echoing through the Great Hall. "I want to know everything about these creatures. How did they build a ship that our best scientists say cannot exist?" Intelligence Officer Quindal stepped forward. She was smaller than most Zalaxians, with dark green scales and quick movements. Her job was to know about every threat to the Empire, but she had almost nothing to report. "Your Majesty, we have very little information about humans," she admitted. "There are scattered reports from frontier worlds about strange bipedal creatures. Traders mention them sometimes, but always as curiosities, not threats." "Curiosities?" The Emperor's voice rose. "That curiosity just appeared in our space with a warship that makes our fleet look like children's toys." Quindal bowed her head. "The reports describe them as problem solvers, Your Majesty. They seem to find ways around obstacles that would stop other species. But no one thought they were capable of this level of technology." Emperor Zarthul stood up from his throne. At full height, he was 3 meters tall, an impressive figure that had intimidated countless enemies. But today, he felt small and uncertain. "Where is Grand Admiral Velthos?" he demanded. "The 7th Imperial Fleet is moving to intercept the human vessel," an aide reported. 40 ships, including 3 dreadnoughts. The Admiral is confident they can handle any single ship, no matter how advanced." The Emperor hoped the Admiral was right, but something in his gut told him this would not be an easy victory. Grand Admiral Velthos stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive dreadnought Eternal Glory. Around him, 40 of the Empire's best warships moved through space in perfect formation. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a city, and together they could level entire planets. The Admiral was old, with battle scars covering his dark blue scales. He had fought in dozens of wars and never lost a battle. Today would not be his first defeat. "Long-range sensors show the target ahead," his tactical officer reported. "Still using some kind of stealth system, but we can track it now." "Good," Velthos replied. "Signal the fleet. We will surround this human ship and demand its surrender. If they refuse, we will show them the price of challenging the Empire." But as they got closer, the sensor readings became more detailed. The human ship was even larger than the reports had suggested. Its hull was covered with armor plating that looked incredibly thick, and energy readings showed power systems beyond anything in their database. "Admiral," the tactical officer said quietly, "the power output from that ship is enormous. Their shields alone are generating more energy than our entire fleet." Velthos felt a chill of doubt, but he pushed it away. Numbers mattered in space combat. 40 ships against 1, no matter how advanced, should be an easy victory. On the USS Defiance, Captain Morrison watched the approaching fleet on his main screen. The Zalaxian ships looked impressive, but he knew appearances could be deceiving. 40 ships, Navigator Ben Taylor reported. 3 of them are dreadnought class. They're moving to surround us. "Let them come," Morrison said calmly. "Lisa, are our defensive systems ready?" Chief Engineer Lisa Brooks nodded. "All systems are operating at full capacity, sir. Our shields can handle anything they can throw at us." Weapons Officer Kate Sullivan checked her instruments. "All weapons, armed and ready, Captain. The main plasma cannon is charged and standing by." Morrison had hoped to avoid a fight, but the Empire seemed determined to test humanity's resolve. He would give them a demonstration they would never forget. Incoming. Transmission from the lead ship. Communication Officer Amy Chen reported. "Put it on screen," Morrison ordered. Grand Admiral Velthos appeared on the view screen, his scarred face twisted with authority and confidence. Human vessel, you are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. Morrison stepped forward so the Admiral could see him clearly. Admiral, I am Captain Jake Morrison. We came here to talk, not to fight. But if you insist on violence, we will defend ourselves. You have 1 ship against 40, Velthos replied. Your technology may be advanced, but you cannot win this battle. Morrison smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. Admiral, would you like a demonstration of what human technology can do? Before Velthos could answer, Morrison nodded to Kate Sullivan. Fire a warning shot. Target the small moon in this system. Aye, sir, Sullivan replied. Her fingers moved over the weapon, controls with practiced skill. The main plasma cannon of the Defiance charged with a sound like thunder. Energy gathered at the weapon's muzzle, creating a bright blue glow that could be seen from light years away. Then, with a flash that lit up space, the cannon fired. The beam of concentrated energy crossed the solar system in seconds. It struck the small moon that orbited the system's 4th planet, and the result was spectacular. The entire moon simply vanished, converted to energy and scattered particles in less than a heartbeat. On the bridge of the Eternal Glory, every officer stared in shock. The moon had been completely destroyed by a single shot from a weapon they didn't even know existed. Impossible, Velthos whispered. No weapon can generate that much power. His tactical officer's voice shook as he reported, Admiral, our sensors recorded the energy output of that shot. It was over 10,000 times more powerful than our largest guns. Velthos felt fear creep into his heart for the first time in decades. If the humans could destroy a moon with a single shot, what could they do to his fleet? Captain Morrison's voice came over the communication channel again, calm and steady. Admiral, that was our smallest weapon, fired at minimum power. We have no wish to harm you, but we will defend ourselves if attacked. I suggest you reconsider your position. The Maru, Salaxian fleet hung in space, paralyzed by the display of power they had just witnessed. Every ship's sensors had recorded the impossible, a weapon that could destroy worlds with a single shot. Admiral, Morrison continued, we offer you a choice. You can attack us and discover what our larger weapons can do, or you can allow us to continue to your capital world for peaceful negotiations. What will it be? Grand Admiral Velthos looked around his bridge at officers who had never known defeat. Their faces showed the same shock and fear he felt in his own heart. The Empire's greatest fleet had just been made to look like toys by a single human warship. All ships, he said slowly. Withdraw to safe distance. Do not engage the human vessel. Sir? His tactical officer asked in confusion. You heard me, Velthos replied. We are outmatched. Retreat. The Imperial fleet pulled back, leaving the USS Defiance free to continue its journey toward the capital world. On ships throughout the fleet, officers sent urgent messages to their commanders, trying to explain what they had witnessed. Emperor Zarthol received the reports in his throne room. His greatest admiral, the man who had never lost a battle, was retreating from a single enemy ship. The weapon demonstration had been recorded by dozens of sensors, but the Emperor could barely believe what he was seeing. They destroyed an entire moon, he said quietly, with one shot. Intelligence Officer Quindal nodded grimly. Your Majesty, if they can do that to a moon, they can do it to our planets, to our fleet, to anything they choose. The Emperor sat heavily on his throne. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Zalaxian Empire faced an enemy it could not defeat through force. The humans were coming to his capital world, and there was nothing he could do to stop them. Captain Morrison stood on his bridge, watching the retreating enemy fleet. The demonstration had worked perfectly. Now the Empire knew that humanity was not to be taken lightly. Set course for their capital world, he ordered, and prepare a diplomatic message. It's time to have a real conversation with Emperor Zarthol. The USS Defiance continued through space, carrying with it the future of human-galactic relations. Behind them, an empire tried to understand how everything they thought they knew about power and technology had just changed forever. The USS Defiance appeared in the skies above Zalaxia Prime like a storm cloud blocking out the sun. The massive human battleship moved slowly through the planet's orbital defenses, which suddenly looked like toys compared to the alien vessel that had just arrived. On the planet's surface, 12 billion Zalaxians looked up at their sky and saw something that had never happened before. A foreign warship hung above their capital world, and their mighty fleet had been unable to stop it. Captain Jake Morrison stood on his bridge, looking down at the planet through the main view screen. The world was beautiful, with blue oceans and green continents covered in gleaming cities. But he knew those cities were filled with people who had built their civilization on the conquest of others. "Orbital defenses are tracking us," Security Chief Nick Rodriguez reported. 24 defense platforms, each one armed with heavy plasma cannons, but they're not firing. "They learned their lesson," Morrison replied. "After what happened to their fleet, they know better than to attack us." Chief Engineer Lisa Brooks monitored the ship's systems as they maintained orbit above the enemy capital. "All systems running smoothly, Captain. The quantum displacement drive is standing by in case we need to leave quickly." Morrison nodded. They were deep in enemy territory now, surrounded by potentially hostile forces. One wrong move could turn this diplomatic mission into the start of a galactic war. "Any response from the planet?" he asked. Communication Officer Amy Chen shook her head. "Nothing official yet, sir, but I'm monitoring their news broadcasts. The whole planet is in chaos. Some are calling for immediate attack, others want to negotiate. Their government seems paralyzed." In the Imperial Palace far below, Emperor Zarthol paced back and forth in his private chambers. His advisors had been arguing for hours, but no one could agree on what to do. The human ship hung above them like a sword, and everyone knew it, could destroy their world with a single shot. "We have to attack," General Kexmore insisted. He was the Emperor's military advisor, a scarred veteran who had never backed down from a fight. "If we show weakness now, every world in the Empire will think they can challenge us." "Attack with what?" Intelligence Officer Quindal replied. "They destroyed a moon with one shot. Our orbital defenses would be useless against them." Princess E. Nexara sat quietly in the corner, listening to the debate. She was young for a member of the royal family, with bright silver scales and intelligent green eyes. Unlike the others, she had been studying the intercepted human transmissions, trying to understand what these strange creatures really wanted. "Father," she said finally, "perhaps we should listen to what they have to say." Emperor Zarthol stopped pacing and looked at his daughter. "You think we should negotiate with them?" "They could have destroyed our fleet," Nexara replied. "They could have fired on our planet as soon as they arrived. But they haven't. They said they wanted to talk, and so far they've kept their word." General Kexmore made a sound of disgust. "They're waiting for us to show weakness. The moment we agree to negotiate, they'll know they've won without a fight." "Haven't they already won?" the princess asked quietly. "They're sitting above our capital with a weapon that can destroy worlds. What more do they need to prove?" The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. He had ruled the Empire for 30 years, and in all that time no one had ever challenged his authority. But now he faced a choice that could determine the fate of his entire civilization. "Send them a message," he said finally. "Tell them I will meet with their representative." On the Defiance, Morrison received the Emperor's response with relief. He had been prepared for a fight, but diplomacy was always the better option. "Ambassador Johnson," he called to his diplomatic officer. "You're up." Claire Johnson nodded and gathered her files. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen many negotiations. But this would be the most important meeting of her career. "Tom," Morrison said to intelligence analyst Tom Walker, "what can you tell us about their emperor?" Tom consulted his datapad. "Zarthol has ruled for 30 years. He's known for being ruthless but practical. He's also never lost. A major conflict, this will be hard for him." "Good," Morrison replied. "Proud leaders make mistakes when they're backed into a corner, but they also know when they're beaten." The meeting was arranged to take place on a neutral space station hastily constructed for the occasion. It was a small structure, barely large, Enough for the two delegations, but it served its purpose. Emperor Zarthul arrived first, surrounded by his guards and advisors. He wore his finest robes and carried himself with the dignity of someone who ruled over 1,000 worlds. But Morrison could see the tension in his posture, the way his eyes kept looking toward the human battleship visible through the station's windows. When Morrison entered the meeting room, the two leaders faced each other for the first time. The Emperor was tall and imposing, his red scales gleaming under the lights. Morrison was smaller and seemingly less impressive, but he carried himself with quiet confidence. "So," the Emperor said, "you are the humans who have caused such trouble for my empire." "We are the humans who refuse to be ignored," Morrison replied calmly. "Your empire has been expanding for centuries, conquering world after world, but you've never encountered a species that could match your technology. And now we have," Zarthul said. It wasn't a question. "Now you have," Morrison confirmed. "The question is, what do we do about it?" Ambassador Johnson stepped forward with a datapad containing humanity's proposal. "Your Majesty, we don't want to be your enemies, but we also won't be your subjects. We're offering a different kind of relationship." The Emperor took the datapad and scanned its contents. The terms were simple, but revolutionary. Recognition of humanity as an equal power, an end to imperial expansion into human territory, fair trade agreements and technology sharing. "You asked me to treat you as equals," the Emperor said finally. "We don't ask," Morrison replied. "We demand, and we have the power to enforce that demand." Princess Nexara leaned forward. She had been studying the human proposals with fascination. "Captain Morrison, your technology could benefit both our species. Imagine what we could accomplish working together instead of as enemies." Her father looked at her with surprise, but Morrison nodded approvingly. "The princess understands. We're not here to destroy your empire, we're here to change it." General Kexmore spoke up angrily. "The empire has never bowed to anyone. We will not start now." Morrison's expression hardened. "General, your fleet tried to stop us and failed. Your orbital defenses could not prevent us from reaching your capital. Your emperor sits here negotiating because he knows the alternative is the destruction of everything you've built." The room fell silent. Everyone understood the truth of Morrison's words, even if they didn't want to admit it. Emperor Zarthul looked out the window at the human battleship floating in space. A single ship had changed everything. His empire, which had seemed invincible just days ago, now faced its first real challenge in 1,000 years. "What guarantee do I have that you won't simply destroy us once we've agreed to your terms?" he asked. "The same guarantee you give us," Morrison replied. "Our word, backed by our actions, we could have destroyed your fleet. We could have fired on your planet. Instead, we're sitting here talking." The Emperor was quiet for a moment, weighing his options. Then he looked at his daughter, who nodded encouragingly. "Very well," Zarthul said slowly. "Let us discuss terms." Ambassador Johnson smiled and opened her negotiation files. The first steps toward a new galactic order were about to begin, and humanity would have a voice in shaping the future of the galaxy. The negotiations lasted 3 days. Captain Morrison and Emperor Zarthul sat across from each other in the small meeting room, with their advisors watching every word. Through the windows, they could see the USS Defiance hanging in space like a constant reminder of humanity's power. Ambassador Claire Johnson spread the final treaty documents on the table. The papers represented weeks of careful work, turning ideas into laws that would govern relations between two civilizations. "The Terra-Zalaxia Accords," she announced. "The first treaty in galactic history where the Empire recognizes another species as an equal partner." Emperor Zarthul picked up the documents and read them one more time. His red scales had lost some of their shine over the past few days. The stress of negotiating with equals was something he had never experienced before. "These terms will change everything," he said quietly. "That's the point," Morrison replied. "Your empire has ruled through fear and conquest for 1,000 years. It's time for something different." Princess Nexara leaned forward eagerly. She had spent hours talking with the human delegation, learning about their technology and their way of thinking. Father, imagine what we could accomplish together. Their fusion technology could power our worlds for centuries. Their medicine could save millions of lives. General Kexmore made a sound of disgust from his corner of the room. We're giving up everything that made us strong. The other worlds will see this as weakness. The other worlds will see it as wisdom, Morrison countered. We're offering partnership, not domination. Your empire can continue to exist, but it must change how it treats other species. Intelligence analyst Tom Walker spoke up from behind. Morrison. General, your empire conquered through superior technology. Now you've met a species with even better technology. You can adapt or be destroyed. Those are your only choices. The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. Then he picked up a signing stylus and wrote his name at the bottom of the treaty. The sound of the stylus scratching on paper seemed very loud in the silent room. Morrison signed next, followed by Ambassador Johnson and Princess Nexara. The treaty was complete. It's done, the Emperor said. The Zalaxian Empire recognizes humanity as a sovereign species with equal rights and territory, and in return humanity offers defensive technology, medical advances, and fair trade agreements. Morrison added, "This is the beginning of a new era." Word of the treaty spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On every world in the Empire, people gathered around communication screens to hear the impossible news. Their emperor, who had never bowed to anyone, had just signed a treaty with an unknown species. On the mining world of Kepler-7, the draconian slaves looked up from their work as the announcement played over the loudspeakers. For the first time in decades, they saw hope in each other's eyes. If the mighty empire could be forced to negotiate, maybe change was possible for them too. In the laboratories of Centauri Station, Zalaxian scientists studied the technical data that humanity had shared as part of the treaty. The fusion reactor. Designs were centuries ahead of their own technology. The medical scanners could detect diseases that their best equipment couldn't even see. How did they advance so quickly? Dr. Villandra asked her research team. Their species only discovered space travel a few hundred years ago. Her assistant, a young scientist named Mortex, studied the human data with fascination. They think differently than we do. Look at this reactor design. Instead of trying to contain the fusion reaction with force, they guide it with magnetic fields. It's so simple, but we never thought of it. On the bridge of the USS Defiance, Morrison watched the planet below as news of the treaty spread. Crowds had gathered in the streets of the capital city, some celebrating and others protesting. Change was never easy, especially for a civilization that had known only conquest. "Sir," Communication Officer Amy Chen reported, "we're receiving messages from dozens of other species throughout the galaxy. They want to know if humanity will help them negotiate with the Empire too." Morrison smiled. "Tell them we'll consider it. But first, we need to get home and report to Earth Command." Chief Engineer Lisa Brooks prepared the quantum displacement drive for the journey home. "Captain, this mission was a complete success. We've established humanity as a major power in galactic politics." "More than that," Morrison replied. "We've shown that there's an alternative to conquest and domination. Maybe other species will follow our example." Navigator Ben Taylor plotted their course back to Earth. It would be a long journey, but they were carrying news that would change human civilization forever. Earth was no longer alone in the universe. They had allies, trading partners, and a voice in galactic affairs. As the Defiance prepared to leave, Princess Nexara sent a final message from the planet below. "Captain Morrison, thank you for showing us a different path. I will work to ensure that this treaty is just the beginning of positive change in our empire." Morrison replied personally. "Princess, change takes time and courage. You have both. Use them wisely." The USS Defiance activated its quantum drive and began to fade from normal space. The Zalaxian orbital defenses tracked them as they departed, but this time, there was no hostility. The human ship had arrived as an unknown threat, and was leaving as an ally. Emperor Zarthul stood in his palace looking up at the night sky where the human ship had been. General Kexmore stood beside him, still angry about the treaty. The other sector commanders are demanding explanations. the general reported. Some are talking about rebellion. Let them talk, the Emperor replied. They didn't see what I saw. They didn't face that ship and its weapons. Anyone who wants to challenge humanity can try, but they'll do it without my support. Princess Nexara joined them on the balcony. Father, I've been studying the human technology they shared with us. With their help, we could solve the energy crisis on the outer worlds. We could cure the plague that's been spreading through the Andorian system. And in return? The Emperor asked. We treat other species with respect instead of fear. We offer partnership instead of conquest. It's not weakness, Father. It's evolution. The Emperor looked at his daughter with new respect. Perhaps the young understood change better than the old. 3 months later, news reached Earth that the Calvarian rebellion had ended peacefully. The rebels had negotiated with the Empire using human diplomats as mediators. 2 more species had signed treaties similar to the Terra Xalaxia Accords. Morrison read the reports in his office at Earth Command. Through his window he could see construction crews working on new shipyards. Humanity was building a fleet that could defend their new position in galactic politics. His aide, Lieutenant Ryan Davis, brought him the latest intelligence reports. Sir, we're receiving requests for assistance from 17 different species. They all want help negotiating with various galactic powers. What's our response? Morrison asked. Admiral Stevens says we should be careful not to overextend ourselves. But the President wants to establish humanity as a force for peace in the galaxy. Morrison nodded. It was a big responsibility, but humanity had proven they could handle big challenges. The Defiance had returned to Earth as more than just a ship. It had become a symbol of humanity's emergence as a galactic power. The species that had once been considered a curiosity by frontier traders was now shaping the future of interstellar civilization. And in the depths of space, other civilizations watched and wondered if they too could find the courage to stand up to the powers that had oppressed them for so long. The galaxy was changing and humanity had shown them that change was possible. The age of human diplomacy had begun, and nothing would ever be the same.